So, I went and recorded this whole presentation. I had the mic that you're looking at right now on the bottom right here. And if you look on the table, there's another webcam by the keyboard, and there's the Blue Yeti microphone up top there. And can you guess which microphone the computer decided to pick up? None of them. Didn't record a single thing. So I decided I would go ahead and do like a little commentary overview of the presentation as it plays through. So what I'm presenting is Surviving a Game Jam by me, Garrett Huffman. I'm the one commenting. And so first of all, I start with a whole lot of hand waving down here in the bottom right. What a game jam actually is. And you can kind of see the picture of a bunch of people, and it's typically what it is. A group of like 2 to 3 people on a team, and a big group, a whole bunch of people will participate in a game jam and make a game in a limited amount of time. So that's to summarize. And so the rest of this, you can just see me kind of hand waving, nodding. Oh, and look at that. Okay. So now, what kind of restrictions? So there's, you can read them on the screen right here. No big deal. But the themes, there can be one theme or several themes that's kind of like auto-generated word, or it's randomly generated, or audience will like give a whole bunch of theme suggestions and then we'll vote on them like Ludum Dare or something. They're always time-based, so typically a game jam will be like 48 to 72 hours or so, but they can go from like a week to a month or something like that. There are hardware ones where you can limit it based on like you could have like a Game Boy game jam, or you could have to use a specific set of hardware, like you have to use a printer for your game jam. There are art style ones where you could do like 8-bit or single color or voxel style, low poly, something like that. So then there are engine ones. It's like Unity and Unreal. They each have their own game jams where you can only use that specific engine. Oh, it looks like I'm already moving on. Okay, so this is kind of like a glimpse at what I've done. And so this is the only part that it recorded. So I'm just going to let this play the sound as soon as it goes. Eventually here I will full screen. Here, he's the ranged character in the game. Still going, almost there. Alright, so that was all the game jams that I've done in the last decade. And I was trying to show off that like you start off at the very beginning and you are not great. You're going to fail a lot, and you'll slowly get better and better and better after each game jam. Your art will get better, your music will get better, sound effects will get better, your overall game design will get better. And so some of my games were actually games. A good part of them failed. And some of them even were a good starting point where I took them quite a bit further. One of them actually got greenlit. I never did get it all the way through and sold it or anything, but it did successfully get greenlit. So these are all just tips on how I foresee actually successfully getting through a game jam. So your first time, if you're a coder, I would suggest doing it by yourself rather than going for a full team, but you can do that. But otherwise, stay small. If you think you can do it in an hour, then that's the game that you should try to make, especially for your first game jam. You want to keep it tiny. Then sleep and eat healthy. Like the Ludum Dare, there's a 48-hour one if you do a competition. Don't try and stay up for all 48 hours. It's just, you're going to get through the first day, and by the second day, you're just going to crash, and then you're not even going to be able to finish your game. Just sleep and eat well. 50% game, 50% polish. Spend that, if it's a 2-day jam, spend the first day actually making the mechanics of the game, and then the second day polishing those mechanics. And then, so with that, you focus on the core game loop. So I had like one with a caveman where you go and you attack a chicken. And so with that one, it's a 1 to 3 second action that you repeat over and over and over. That's how simple you want it to be. Looks like I'm about to change slides, maybe. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so art tips and tools. When you're creating a level, especially in 3D for Game Jam, just box it in, like in the window in the bottom left there. Look at that, I just pointed at it too. Don't try to create detailed, like a super awesome wooden box or something. Just create a simple box, pop it in, and go. Once your game is actually in place, then you can go back through and start making it better and clean up and make that wooden box when you know you have the time to do it. So simple is better, just don't do details at all. Even when the final art comes into place, try not to do detailed artwork because you're just not going to have the time to do it, especially if you're solo. Magic of Voxel is one that I'd highly recommend. It's a voxel-based program, so it's kind of like MS Paint version of a 3D model, and you can export OBJs out, so it makes it really quick and easy to prototype models. And I'm changing the slide. Yep, okay. So sound, there's BFXR, which is commonly referenced throughout game jams. It's an easy one to do sound effects. One that I haven't seen very often recommended is music generators. So Wolfram Alpha's got their own generator thing. There's a couple other ones that use like some crazy AI things. But don't forget to do sound in your game. It's pretty easy to, as you're developing and playing and going, you're iterating in your design to forget about the sound effects, but the sound effects add so much to the game that just don't forget doing that. Looks like I'm still talking, still hand waving and motioning. Eventually I'll get past this. Maybe? Not yet? Oh, there we go. Okay. So, polishing your game. There's a whole bunch that you can do that's going to make your game more enjoyable to somebody coming in. So, there's going to be... let's just go down the list here. Screen shake. That's a nice, easy one. It's called like the juicing effect, where you do screen shake, you do all the flashing effects and sound effects and particle effects and all those kind of things. They surprisingly help your game a lot. They improve the feel of it. And you really should spend some time on that. Focus on making the important parts of your game, like the core mechanic, that 1 to 3 second game loop, as good as you can. Don't spend like 6 hours on the main menu. Just have a start screen with enter game and exit, and that's it. Don't spend any more time on it than that. You want the game to be fun, not the main menu. When you go to package your game, try to do it an hour before the game jam ends. You're almost always going to hit a snag with release mode. Something is going to be quirky or it's not going to release right. It's best to give yourself as much time as you can, and then if it just happens to work right the first time, then you've got a little bit of extra time that you can squeeze some more art into it and polish it a little bit more. But try not to do code in that last hour. Suggestions. Okay, don't always team up with a group of people. So it's great to do, And this is a little bit harder for just artists, but you can still do it nowadays too with Unity and Unreal's drag and drop code editor stuff. But if you're a coder, if you go single, then you get into a whole bunch of fields that you wouldn't otherwise do. So you start doing 3D modeling, you start doing 2D art, the music, sound effects, and all those fields that you wouldn't normally get into. And a game jam is a great way to jumpstart yourself into that. But on the other side, you should team up when you can, because communication in making a game is going to be required at some point if you want to take this further than just a hobby in your basement. Don't always do the same game jam. So like Ludum Dare is a 48-hour one that has a single theme. There are other ones that will be a month-long jam or a week-long one. Will have multiple themes. Will be restricted by certain hardware. So it's good to try different things and branch out on even your game jams and interact with more of the community. When you do the game jam, experiment with the game design. Try not to experiment as much with the tools. When it comes to the tools, you should actually know what they are and how to use them, not try to learn it while you're rushing through it. It's just going to be frustrating. But with the game design, the more out there and creative and crazy you can get, the better. When you're making it, try to record your progress. So I can probably explain it roughly here in the video, but it's kind of like watching a kid grow up over a year. Like when you're there with them day to day to day, you don't notice them growing taller and taller, but when you take a picture of them and you look at 1 year to another, you can see all of a sudden that they've grown a foot and you didn't realize it. So it's the same with your game jam. Try to record like every 6 hours or so, and then when you finally finish it and you go back and you look and you see the progress that you've made over the last 48, 72, a week, it's amazing to see just how far it's come. Decide why you're doing the jam. Have a specific goal when you go to it. So whether it's I want to get better at my 2D art animation, or I want to get better at scripting, or you want to try a certain new mechanic, just have a set goal for the game jam going in, and it'll help direct your game a little bit more. And that's kind of what the themes do already, but having a set goal for your education when you do the game jam is going to be that much better and help push you a little bit more. I think I talked a little bit here about postmortems, and they're kind of neat, but I wouldn't recommend doing one. I think they're kind of a waste of time because nobody else is really going to read them necessarily, unless you're like Notch or something. But I wouldn't bother unless maybe if you wanted like blog traffic or something, but I don't know. They're kind of neat, but more so just for yourself to get thoughts down on paper or ones and zeros. Go crazy with your ideas. The more ridiculous an idea is, usually the better it happens to be in a game jam. Don't try to do super generic Call of Duty or something like that where you just have a guy and you shoot, that's it. Try to do something more unique. Maybe you're a T-Rex with a laser, something ridiculous. Alright, so what jams are there? There's the Ludum Dare, which GamedevGR actually hosted at OST, which is where this video is, 2 years ago, which turned out really well. It was even catered and everything, and everybody had a lot of fun. The Global Game Jam is you go to a location and everybody jams out at the same time once a year in January, I think. The Detroit Motor City Game Jam, which I think I just pointed at in the video, is the Detroit Game Devs meetup. Is starting this Friday, June 9th, I think. And so that's one that anybody local to Michigan could go and check out. And you do, I think they're meeting the first Friday and kind of just doing an introduction and forming teams. And then the remainder of the weekend you can work remotely. Otherwise, indiegamejams.com. So the screenshot at the bottom is a couple of days old now, but that's all of the game jams going on right now. So there are a lot of them. I mean, on that screen alone, there's got to be at least 50. So there's tons of opportunities for game jams. So if there's one that you want, if you want to participate in one, there's one that you can find within a day or two of wanting to do it. And it's good to do it because you can jump in and find a community. And the smaller ones, you're going to usually get better feedback because you can play all of their games, see their interpretation of the themes, and then they can play yours and do the same thing. The Ludum Dares and the Global Game Jams, they're a lot bigger, so they got a lot more entries. So there's potentially more people playing your game, but not necessarily as much feedback directed back at you from people that are trying to do the same things you are. Oh, I think I actually finished pretty close on time with that slide. What can GamedevGR do? Okay, so the remainder of this next 15 minutes here is just me discussing with everybody else in the group on what the GamedevGR meetup can do. So we want to create a game jam in the West Michigan area that everybody can come and participate in. Rough thing, everybody agreed they want to do it. It sounds like we want to plan for a weekend-long one with the potential of doing a month-long jam where it's kind of like do check-in points, but make it a lot more laid back and less time restricted. But it sounds like we're going to try and hit a weekend one at one of the local colleges, maybe Kendall or Ferris or something like that. We're going to work with the VR meetup that's local here too and see what we can get going. Teams sounded like a good thing. Prizes, maybe. We discussed it kind of turns it into like a contest rather than game jam when you put prizes in, but we might be able to get some sponsorship to do that, and that could be fun. Yeah, I think that's really all I have for commentary on all of this. You can watch me in the bottom right there dance and nod my head to the silence, but that's all I've got. I think I will fill the remainder of this video with a bunch of music from Matt Havenshire, who made all this music for my Set in Stone game. And if you have any music needs at all, I would highly recommend checking out Matt. He does some awesome stuff, and I'll have a link in the bottom of the YouTube here. So thank you for listening to my commentary, and thanks for watching the presentation, guys.